I saw that.
like an hour or so ago.
All right, folks, we are live, and I don't normally stream on Tuesdays, but today's a little special. As I'm here with member Leak Death. We'll probably be joined by some others. And realistically, the whole reason we're streaming is because in 6 hours, the whole we are going to be homeless again in a sorts. Live space will be shutting down, although it's arguably already pretty much all but shut down at this point. And those of us who are used to leaving burning flaming wrecks are doing this once again. I'm kind of like melancholy about the whole thing. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, it's I think like everyone else, it came as a little bit of a shock, and it was very sudden, and kind of spent that first week afterwards, like what what is going on and what is happening, and then it's now I'm sort of at the point where it's like I'm happy for what was there. I wish it lasted longer, but it's the streaming space is much more difficult than I think a lot of people really give it credit for, as far as like trying to run a business.
Absolutely no argument. You look at how hard it is to come up with it. I mean, how many sites have actually managed to pull it off? 1, 2, and they're not really not exactly
right. Exactly, and I mean, there's a reason that the ones that are still surviving have either some big backer behind them or they're just crypto. Right?
But I was honestly hoping that if anything would have survived, it would have been live. They were doing things so radically different. And even you and I, who are like refugees from Glimish was pretty much pretty much what they said. It's pretty much the same old, same old. Whereas there was at least to me, a marked difference in how they weren't approaching it with we're not really going to listen as much, no better. They were actually willing to listen. And like I said earlier, were all ideas great? No, some weren't even useful. But the fact that they were willing to listen.
Right. And I think that's the big push. I think that's the big difference that we saw. How much different the approach LiveSpace was doing from what we had seen at Glimish. Because Glimish had at the end of the day had a few more features before they packed up than LiveSpace had, but LiveSpace was much more. It felt much more community oriented, and it felt like everyone, even if you could get your opinion out there, whether or not it was acted upon or not, was not really here or there. It was more of a the idea that there was someone there who you could listen to, who you could talk to, that they were present. Todd had his Tuesdays and Thursdays, and you could pop in there and just actually feel like you had some kind of communication with the site, with the site owners.
Yeah, that was one of the absolute things I love. I mean, the only time I've ever seen anybody doing anything like that here on Twitch, where we're pretty much housed now, was when things were going drastically wrong. And to my knowledge, Kick has never done that. Certainly, YouTube has never. But in the other streaming, it always seemed that even Glimish, that was doing it on their doing their monthly board meetings, stopped doing it after a while. But with a few exceptions, Todd was an absolute regular. You could pretty much, it was like clockwork, and that was just absolutely amazing. You may not have had the news to report, and sometimes it was more just about talking about the karaoke. But the fact alone that he was actually putting his money where his mouth was and actually streaming right along with the rest of us. I just don't see that happening at the sites. So, you have somebody there who's actually trying to understand where you're coming from and not just, okay, here we go. Here's our content creator, whatever.
Right. And not to forget either that, on Discord, they had a very good community management going on Discord. Probably, I would say, one of the best community management Discord managed community thing that I've ever really participated in. I didn't, there was a little bit, some of their channels were a little bit cluttered and a little bit hard to follow, but there was almost always someone there to kind of, guide the conversation if it sort of went off the rails and things were going a little wonky. And I think that just speaks to, all of that, both of those aspects, I think, speak towards how connected LiveSpace felt with the actual community. It felt like they were actually taking the time to curate their community and bring them along rather than just kind of tolerate them, as we've seen for other, in other instances, or even to an extent exploit them.
Yeah, I mean, their argument about because unfortunately, looking at somewhat related in the fact that Beam, which launched last week.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people are like, it came out of nowhere, even though there's evidence that it's been around in testing for like 6 months. Pretty much waving their flag. It's like, hey, all you live spacers, come on over here, come over and check us out. And what happens? Day 2, they pull the free streaming plug. So now the only way to do it there is if you're paying for it. It's like, that's bait and switch, guys. I mean, that's a clear indication to me that they have, like you said, they're exploiting people. They have zero respect for their. I would almost say it's a cash grab, but they're apparently not even managing that.
Yeah, I think what struck me about Beam was as I was looking at it, I was there, I was ready, I was filling out the form, I was ready to join a test, and then I read the fine print, and I was like, wait a minute, something's fishy here. Where they're talking about, your free trial ends in like 3 months and stuff, and then I went and looked some more and realized that they were in fact a VoIP company. Similar to like a Discord or probably more like a Teams or a Zoom kind of thing, and that is very telling in how they've approached the streaming stuff to me, because what they basically did was they said, all right, we're not really able to compete right now in the VoIP space because there's a lot of big competitors and they've already got, competitive advantage and all this stuff. So we're going to pivot into streaming because, basically we're streaming, right? And maybe possibly they're taking advantage of the recent, closures of streaming sites and whatnot. But the damnedest thing of it all is it doesn't seem like they've did any of their research when they did it. They just kind of slapped something together that looked like it would work, but they never really figured out what people actually need in the space or how people operate in the space or anything of that nature. Because if they had, I highly doubt they would have went with their pay to play tiers there, or at least they would have reimagined them in such a way that they would be more aligned with what we know, like an extra support tier or something like that. Kind of like the Live Space Plus kind of thing.
Yeah, the thing that just stunned me also was the fact that honestly they were saying that, oh, on their pages, like, get sponsorships, get sponsorships, get sponsorship, and you look at the fine print, and the sponsors aren't for you; they're for them. They're paying Beam so that you can stream. That's not technically getting you a sponsor. That's just somebody that's essentially daddy handing the credit card over so that you can stream.
Yeah,
And
that you're talking about, that energy drink thing, that
exactly.
LinkedIn
Furthermore, for a
locked
lot of
in.
people, that would violate their partnership. I mean, for example, in a disclosure, I've got a partnership with Dubby. One of the things is that I'm not allowed to have anybody else to have another drink sponsor, and that might have violated the my contract. It's like
Yeah,
that for there immediately, along with everything else, was like a no go. But how many people are going to read the fine print and then get screwed over? But yeah, Bean's not going to say so sorry. They don't care.
yeah, exactly. That's why I mean, it doesn't feel like they did any of their market research before they went into. They just jumped headfirst into it. It's almost like they said, someone asked them, "Who are your competitors?" and they just answered yes. It's like, are you a VoIP or are you a streaming site? We're both now. And I think that's one of my big, I think, bugbears with a lot of the newer sites that have come about in the last couple of years, is that it doesn't seem like they're learning from the mistakes of the past. It seems like we're repeating a lot of the same issues over and over and over again. With the exception of LiveSpace, which did, I think they still didn't quite know. There were still some things about streaming I think they were learning, but I think their community first approach was refreshing enough, and the tying in a social, as part of that community first, tying in a social feed, which makes perfect sense when you're community first, I think made a lot of sense, and I applaud them for that. And I think you kind of need that. You need someone who come in with a fresh perspective, but also on in addition to that, they really do need to go back and look at, like, why did people like Mixer so much? What was the failings of Mixer? What was the successes of Mixer? What are the failings and successes of Glimish? What were the failings and successes of all these other sites that have come before them?
I've got it's our buddy. It's just T who's joined us. T, you got anything to weigh in on this?
They might be having a mic issue, maybe.
Should have speaking ability.
Oh, he has no permission to speak, he says.
Hold on, let me check something here. No, I give him guest status. He should have complete speaking ability. Bear with me. I'm looking at the setups here. Check to see if your mic is on. I mean, Gilded as always has that problem of the mic getting turned off. Yeah, I think I heard a click. Okay, we heard a click. Are you there? Let's see. Not muted. Him unmuting. Yeah, you should have audio. Bear with us, folks. We're trying to get T to talk, but in the meanwhile, Pemba, if you've got anything else you wanted to weigh in on that.
Yeah. He also said he sent a screenshot in general there. But yeah, I think it's really hard to quantify to those who may not know what LiveSpace was or were kind of waiting in the wings to come into LiveSpace. It's hard to quantify exactly why they were different from others, I think, because you and I should have been on a couple different sites. I've been constantly moving from site to site to site, and there's that spark, as it were, kind of makes a community wholesome and different, and generally helpful and whatnot. And it's dare I say, we were almost to the level of like Mixer, I think, when it came to the community on LiveSpace. We were definitely different, and we're definitely a ton smaller. But it did, in many ways, remind me a lot of back when, streaming on Mixer, and how good the community was there. Every time you'd have a viewer come in, they were genuinely helpful. They were not like just dragging you through the mud or anything like that you might find on like Twitch or whatnot. They would generally come in and they'd be like, "Oh, I remember this game. This game was fantastic." And have you played this game before? Do you need any help? Do you need any tips? I remember that very vividly from the Mixer days, and I remember being very surprised and pleasantly surprised by it, because I was also streaming on Twitch at the time, and Twitch was all I really knew, and the community was very, very different there, and I was seeing a lot of that also on LiveSpace as well. A lot of people come in.
Two things. One, we just had Roger Wabbit join us. Thanks for joining us. And gee, I think you should be able to speak now. Try it. Okay, that's not exactly what I meant when I said speak. Okay.
Pulse audio, I swear to fuck.
There we go.
There you are.
Goddamn Pulse audio. I swear to God. What's up?
Welcome on in, T.
Thank you.
Also, Roger, if you want to weigh in on it too, feel free and join the guild. Join my Gilded. I'll put the link in the chat here. Are more than welcome to join in the audio chat. So, and yes. I would love to get people's opinions on all this. All right, so with things shutting down, T, what's your take on it?
Honestly, it's still a little shocking, to be honest. Yeah.
To speak, it's
I, s-
5.5
I still
hours
think
left.
I still think it's the multi-streamer's fault.
I don't think it's the multi-streamer's fault. Honestly, basically on what the talks they've had. Yeah, the multi-streamers did everybody no favors. I'm not going to. But it was the investors that, in my opinion, are pushing AI. They have no idea what it is. To them, it's this magic fucking thing. And Odd and Spencer stood to their gun saying, "No, we're not going to, infest the place with AI just because you guys know 2 letters." And that's what did them in.
I saw all the tweets from people mourning MySpace's death. I couldn't help but feel guilt somehow from it. Fawn, however, was in a complete state, because I recognized the way she formed sentences. Honestly, yeah, I don't know.
Well, you gotta feel sorry for people like Chorus, who literally had just joined Livespace 2 weeks earlier after VStream went under. And what happens on the day of their first stream? Boom. Yeah.
Right now it's March the 1st, and if I go to live.space, it should not exist.
Well, it's still
shutting down
April
at
30th here in US. So
yeah,
and it's 6:30 p.m. in Pacific, so you've got 5.5 hours.
I don't think anyone is gonna come over and watch me on YouTube. Fuck it. I don't care.
I'm just streaming this for posterity. I feel that this stuff had to get out because it's Sam and I were talking about earlier. It's like a lot of these sites are not, they're making the same mistakes over and over again. They're not really listening to what they want. They want what either they know better or their investors know better. But
yeah,
the people who are actually doing the workman stuff are just not. They're not being listened to.
Yeah, and
I haven't thought about what you talked to me about share play, and I agree that the whole 50-50 split and day one subscriptions will help them forward. The only nagging issue I have with them is the constant stream buffering. I had a look at my browser's developer console. It was just M3U8 streams being spammed every half a second. It's how do you mess that up, honestly? I don't get it.
Yeah, well, and I think SharePlay highlights another issue that we're seeing here, which is, we're seeing some new competitors come out, but they're very niche. And, streaming video games is where we all started, I'm sure. And I still do like me some video game streams.
Not I started on Picardo with art.
I mean, by we I meant the royal
general
we,
public,
the general we. We started out with, you had Justin TV, but then when Twitch first started, it was just gaming and stuff, and they were very strict about it at first. I think we're now in a point where you have artists, you have musicians, you have creatives, right, who would also kind of they might play games occasionally, but they also kind of want to do their thing, do their creative, get their creative streams on. and to exclude them entirely from what you're trying to do is maybe not the best long-term position to have, especially in the current state of things, because right now, servers are expensive, streaming is expensive. The amount of people you need to offset those costs is pretty large, and I don't know that you're going to draw enough people away from their gaming streams on Twitch, or enough viewers away from their gaming streams on Twitch to make a dent in those costs. Unless you have something else for them to come over for.
I think Todd addressed that. His T days. It's like mentioned that gamers were the low hanging fruit. They didn't have to do anything.
We're getting echoes from you.
Test. Still getting echoes.
You might have your something's looped around. Because I'm hearing very clear me. Not like it's coming through speakers or something.
We're gonna take a real 5-second break. 5-second break. Take a look at this real quick. We'll be right back. All right, we're back, and in addition to mourning the loss of Livespace, we are now mourning the loss of T's mic.
I'll just do extensive testing on my end.
But like I was saying, is that Todd himself had said that gamers were low hanging fruit. They didn't have to do anything to get their attention.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, really. I mean, they're going to come with the territory, and I agree with that thought process.
And but meanwhile, they had to work to get the musicians and artists and whatnot. They were.
I was going to test to see if my mic works, but Guilded doesn't work like that.
And unfortunately, with Livespace Con, there's vanishingly few places to go. I will readily admit that my font streams and whatnot, they're not exactly tailor-picked for Picardo. Picardo is technically the art Twitter, or not Twitter, Twitch, but anybody who's been to Picardo knows that that's kind of like a generality. And if it's hard enough for me there with my art, how much harder is it for somebody like Corey, whose audience already is not exactly what we call perceptive towards streaming? Where's he going to go?
Yeah, that's really the thing. Is I think I agree entirely with what Todd had said, where it was just like, we don't have to target gamers; they'll come with everyone else, because most of the artists will probably play games at some point if they want to, and we have a lot of musicians who would play games and then take a little break and noodle on their guitars and stuff. Like I'm watching quite a few of that. So it's I don't see any alternative out there right now for those for the creatives. You've just got YouTube and you've got Twitch, which are not the ideal spots and haven't been for a long time for any kind of content, really.
I mean, to be absolutely honest, YouTube doesn't even have an art category. I have to stream education or entertainment category.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I do my coding streams in like information technology or whatever category it was, or technology category or something. Yeah, it's none of that's ideal, and YouTube is not ideal for other reasons too. Like streaming on there is a exercise in clicking about 35 buttons to just get to a point where you can stream, and then if you change categories midstream, it doesn't handle it properly and all that stuff. So that was clearly a bolt on top of the YouTube just to compete. But that's not ideal in its own way.
Probably, yeah. Roger Rabbit joining. Hops into the... But aside from that,
Yo.
The next question is that, will anybody learn from this? It's very clear Beam has zero interest in learning.
Yeah, I mean they're way out in left field. I don't think they understood the assignment from the get-go. And we're all I don't even really want to even talk about Vibe, because that's just like every time I look at it, it's another red flag over there. I mean, it's a hell of a thing when I go and read their mission statement, and my first thought is, this doesn't seem like a human being wrote this.
Well, at first they didn't even want to admit where they were coming from, and it took people to figure out. It's like, okay, they mentioned solicitors rather than attorneys, so they're in the.
There you go. It was actually The Wire that died. Rest in peace. Who are we waiting for? Oh, there he is.
I told him he should be able to just pop in and join. But
yep,
yeah, and somehow, despite just launching, Vibe's already quote ready for alpha. Something just sounds very wrong.
Yeah.
Hear the kicker with Beam streaming.
What's that?
It's another streaming platform.
Oh yeah, well I know.
Yeah, Beam. We've been talking about that.
What's the kicker?
They removed the free tier for streaming, and now you have to pay a certain fee per year to go live.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we were mentioning that earlier. Not only that, but they also talk a big game about you getting sponsors, and the fact is that no, you're not getting a sponsor. Somebody is sponsoring. Somebody's paying Beam so that you can play. And you have to deal with the ad. That's not you getting a sponsor.
I still am heavily against sponsorships.
I have no problem with sponsorships. They're a funding channel, but it's like anything in a business. There has to be an equality in the partnership, otherwise it's not really a thing, and that's not what is happening here. That's what not happening on B.
I've also always been against partner programs because I still think they can fuck up a friendship one way or another. And I made it my sole mission not to become a partner or have a verification check. Kick. Sorry, something got stuck in my throat.
So now that you're here, Roger, care to weigh in on your opinions on this whole thing?
Yeah, just give me a second. Can you guys hear me?
Oh yeah, we can hear you. I can hear you
Yes.
perfectly. I think everybody else can too. I'll turn up your mic on this end just in case.
I have to look around for a spare microphone cable because the one I was using died. Luckily, I had a spare one. Yay!
Yeah,
So,
but we can hear you. So go ahead.
Mm-hmm.
So I just think that that LifeSpace did a lot of things right. I think the biggest pull, the thing that doesn't make sense about me for LifeSpace, right, is um and just hear me out for a second, right?
Okay, seconds up. No, I'm just.
Because because I'm gonna say the thing, but it's not gonna be how you think about it, right? So one of the biggest pulls for LifeSpace was its boosted program, right? For a long period of time, not for a long period of time, for a particular period of time, other streaming platforms were offering contracts to like really big names in streaming. And everybody remembers this. They don't do this anymore because they don't turn a profit to when they do this. They actually lose money when they give contracts to big name streamers. YouTube did this, Twitch did this, Mixer, which is a part of Facebook, did this as well. Boosted, what they did was they and the other thing that happened was a lot of streamers were complaining that Twitch was taking too much of a cut of the payments that they were getting from subscriptions, right? Um, people people were already like getting money from sponsorships, and because in some streamers make more money from sponsorships than they do their own subscribers, right? So they were worried that like Twitch was just taking too much money. So one of the biggest, so between that and people complaining that there's a like the Twitch environment was a toxic environment. I don't know if you guys remember, but like the whole reason why like Kick was formed is because like a bunch of people like Twitch when Twitch actually bans people, they enforce like their bans, right? Like some people are just banned for a very long time and they discourage certain types of behavior, right? So then all those people go to Kick, and that's what happened. If you look at Kick, um, they're just it's a bunch of guys that what's how do I say this?
It's Jackass Central. Let's be honest.
Yeah, yeah, like they'll do anything, like anything. Like there's no bottom. There's no like bottom to what they'll do in order to get views, right? Um,
Yeah,
and
it is
so
kind of telling that the one person who's been permabanned from Kick, and the only reason he's permabanned is because it brought legal scrutiny on Kick itself, not just him.
right, exactly. Like exactly. So between that and between like the fact that Twitchers are being too greedy, because if a lot of people for good reason, because Twitch used to be Justin TV, right, and then Amazon bought it, for good reason. Um, people, a lot of people that were from LiveSpace are actually like the software developers, as I understand it, were from YouTube and Twitch. And Alyssa herself used to be the community manager at Twitch, right? And so between all of that, LifeSpace was formed, and it tackled those two issues, the toxicity and the money that streamers were getting in, and basically the boosted. It would be easy if any big name streamer out there wanted to join Lightspace, and I had a conversation with somebody else about this. Um, if Pokimane, like she became big because of Valorant, right? If she joined Lightspace and people just subscribed to her, if she was on the boosted program, she would get 100% of the revenue from viewers to her. That was the biggest pull. And I think it's very telling that um, despite the fact that I don't know if it was a marketing issue, right? Because the whole purpose of marketing is to just let people know that you exist, right? That's like the first purpose of marketing. Um, but like I'm not sure if any big name streamer out there with like 100,000 or even a million followers ever joined Lifespace. I'm sorry, I didn't want to misspeak. And so like it's very telling that the two biggest issues that streamers used to complain about like a year or so ago, they were resolved in Lifespace, but Lifespace still failed. It doesn't make any sense to me, and that's my opinion.
I think two of the problems with talking about the boost program and actually generally payment, from a payment point of view, I think 8515 was too generous. I'll say that it is which is affiliate and partnership programs stingy. Are the various programs on Kick a little bit stingy unless you're one of their golden children? Yes, I'll also say that. But as a startup, I honestly think the 85-15 split for Livespace was too generous. I mean, hell, even as somebody who's boosted myself, that 100% and technically really wasn't 100% because you even though you were getting the 100%, you still had to pay the processing fees yourself. That was part of the contract. So it was more like 98%. Even still, I would have been happy if they'd said, okay, it's a 90-10 for boost. To be honest, I'd signed up for boost as a joke, and I wasn't honestly expecting to get it. But that being said, a startup like Livespace really ill afford that. They did that to show themselves they were different. They did that to show themselves as they were really investing into the community, and I applaud that. But I don't think from a financial standpoint that it was a good thing.
I don't even think that the fact that Lifespace ran out of money was the issue, because I think what they were, and I'm guessing how I'm just throwing stuff out there. I was looking at I looked up Lifespace on Crunchbase. It's like a really easy way, and you don't have to like pay for like an account in order to use Crunchbase to get like something, to get what am I trying to say, a shallow view of who the investors are, right? I think Alyssa was right on Alyssa mentioned that like it was family and friends
who raised the money. It's so-called F&F investment.
Yeah.
Wait, sorry?
It's what's called F&F investing, family and friends.
Right. I actually, this is the first time I've heard that term before, so thank you for teaching me something new. But I think what they were trying to do was that they were trying to get any big named or anybody with a huge following. It doesn't have to be a big name streamer. I know a huge following, like big name streamer is different from huge following. Big name streamer, when I say that, I mean anybody that's famous for streaming. But big follower count means like anybody like with that has like a whole lot of like way more followers than I do, like 100,000 followers. That's basically what I mean by a huge following, right? If they could get any number of streamers with a huge following on the platform, then they could go to like potential investors and be like, here, see, look, this streaming platform has a lot of potential, right? I think, and because here's the thing, when I think of it that way personally, it makes sense to me that that's the route that I would go if I was in their position, because that's actually smart. Once you can prove to people that your platform has potential by just giving people the facts about who's on your platform, then more people are willing to invest on your platform. I think that's what they were going for. They didn't necessarily have to invest money. They just had to or find more money. How am I saying? I'm saying this so wrong in so many ways. Every single time I think I have the words, they come out of my mouth, and then it's like, oh no, I said the wrong thing. Every single time, what am I trying to say? They just need to prove to people who they would approach that the platform has potential. That's all I'm trying to say. That's what I'm trying to say. I apologize.
Yeah, no, I agree with what you said there, because I think, to me, when I was looking at the boosted program, just from an outside observer, it looked like, in my opinion, it was too early for that. But when you take a step back and you look at it as a way to sort of get in, like, if they could get that social bump that they needed, they could maybe use it as a vehicle to pressure investors and to be like, hey, because the last thing investors want to do is they don't want to miss out on the next best thing, right? So like, hey, if you don't give us money, you're going to miss out on this thing. Look, I mean, we're blowing up on social media. Look at all this. And so I agree with what you said there. I think that's probably why they did it so early, because otherwise it doesn't, in my opinion, doesn't make a whole lot of sense to do it so early and to not really have too many guardrails around it either. Because I mean, the whole idea was that you're going to use your influence to promote live space. I don't know how many boosted people actually did that at the end of the day.
Without
every single
fingers, I know there have been accusations, quite a few, of the boosted ones did the exact opposite. That they use the fact that, hey, I'm boosted on LiveSpace, I'm also affiliated here, and because I'm making more money here, I can point out that I'm a big shot on LiveSpace.
Honestly,
it's like, I think that backfired for them.
What's kind of odd is SharePlay announced that they're working on a partner program while still being in beta. And the only way to get access to streaming, to even get SharePlay to accept your connection, is if you're given beta access, which you have to drop in your SharePlay name in their Discord just so you can go live.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to look at SharePlay as they have one of their biggest problems is they're putting the cart before the horse quite often in pretty much everything that they're doing. You haven't even opened your site up to everybody yet, and you've already put all these other things in place. I can understand. I can understand the paranoia, which I think is what's driving a lot of that. I think they're realizing, like, if we open up the floodgates, that's going to be a huge server bill. So let's see if we can maybe slightly open them here and there, and maybe we can kind of get ahead of those bills that are going to be coming down the pike. But unfortunately, I can't think of any business that's ever succeeded by being that particularly cautious. Like, you have to have some sort of you have to make some sort of splash, and I don't think SharePlays has made a splash yet. Or if they did, they kind of wasted that splash because most of the people just who are interested in it realized they couldn't stream on it, or there was nobody else streaming on it at the time, and they just said, "Oh, I'll come back later." And they put it on their, it's on their radar, but it's well down the pike. They might come back at some point, but someone will have to remind them that it exists.
I can't tell you the amount of users I have seen requesting DLive integration to Botrix. And Yandex is not stupid. He knows that DLive is not profitable for Botrix itself. Yeah, sure, a couple people will become premium if lucky, but he doesn't see that integration as profitable, so he's not at the moment interested in. And now with the closure of LiveSpace, he's gonna have to remove. Thankfully, he only spent 100 hours coding that entire integration for LiveSpace. If it was Kick, he would have been super pissed and annoyed as well.
I can tell you for Caster Labs, the only reason DLive is on there is because Lix, the owner of Caster Labs, knows the owner of DLive and owed him a favor. He's mentioned that before, and he hasn't just mentioned it to me, so it's no great secret. But
Fox has been asking me to ask Yandex to bring DLive to integration. I don't think he knows Caster Labs has this integration. I don't even think he knows Caster Labs is a thing.
Which is weird because generally the bot makers all know each other. But getting back to at the same time, I'm going to thank Corey for being extremely quiet and popping in on this until now.
Hey, Corey.
Hey, Corey.
One of the problems, the other one, bye, Corey.
Bye, Corey.
He left.
Bye,
Corey. You guys just start talking to me. I'm taking my toys and going home. Hopefully he'll come back and hear me when I'm saying this.
We scared him off.
Yeah, of the other problems with...
he's back.
Yeah.
Hey, Corey.
Sorry, guys, I hit the wrong button.
Sure, you did.
Sure, you did. I mean, that was a perfect timing if that was the wrong button.
Absolutely. But one of the things that I think Corey can weigh in, we did touch upon this a little earlier, that because SharePlay is specialized only towards games. I mean, it's in their name, SharePlay. That leaves people like me and Corey, vanishingly few places to go.
Actually, if I may jump in, CyberFox is right now, I'm sure he probably ended his stream testing SharePlay, and he actually found an arts and crafts channel over there.
I went looking on their site earlier today because I saw he was on there as well, and I thought got to be abusing a loophole somehow because I went looking for the channels and I didn't see anything. And if there is an arts and crafts channel on SharePlay, they're not saying jack about it, and they're not saying anything about anything other than games, which is going to push away all your artists because we're not talking just.
Call me crazy, but I can literally just look at Twitch and think and just say, I know how to fix this. Just 5 seconds of looking at Twitch, and I'm like, I can fix this. I can fix this.
Yeah, but I'm saying it's like when LiveSpace shut down, suddenly I have nowhere to go to. Corey has nowhere to go to. ArtRat, a lot of the growing art community that was showing up there. Where have we got to go? Corey, want to weigh in on this one? We're talking about this.
Yeah, I was a little confused by where LiveSpace was trying to go. I thought, on the one hand, they said we're making it about crafters and musicians and artists, and then at the same time, all they were doing was catering to the gaming crowd. And I don't want to disparage them. I don't want to bifurcate the community in two different directions, but there are a lot more options out there for gamers. I mean, left and right, you've got, and 3 more within the last month, apparently. And there's literally nowhere that crafters or musicians or artists can go to that is exclusively their own home. And I thought that's where LiveSpace was going.
Ricardo.
And it didn't turn out that way.
Not to mention the
I'm gonna keep joking,
suggestive adult content over there.
I think what a lot of people don't understand is that when it comes to streaming, a lot of people I think that there's a people have a lot of time to watch other people play video games for whatever reason. Like, and that's not a negative. I know that sounded like a negative comment, but it's not. And um, I think that when it comes to artists, when it comes to entertainers, let's call them entertainers, or let's call them artists and entertainers, right? Um, I think the biggest problem that artists and entertainers have is that they need to be an alternative to like curated media. And by curated media I mean like television, Netflix, um like other means of getting the same thing that they're offering, like concerts and stuff like that, right? um I think that um until I think that I don't think the space has matured enough. Like, okay, like to your point, like gaming does take up um a lot of people's attention when it comes to streaming, but that just shows the maturity of the streaming space. I think that's a maturity issue. I think streaming hasn't evolved enough to 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 accommodate like the artists and entertainers that also want to stream their stuff, and and just wants to display their talent. Um, I think streaming just needs a little bit more time in order to like accommodate artists. Probably a more tools that need to be developed. Probably more distinct entertainers or artists need to come to the scene. Like time needs to come along so that people can be comfortable also seeing streaming as an alternative to curated media. And I don't think times have evolved for that yet. And I think that's probably the issue right there.
I can see what you're saying. Uh, Artists and musicians and more literally creative fields are not ever going to draw the same numbers that gamers are going to have, because the cult of personality does not exist with artists. That just doesn't happen. And that happens a lot with gamers and variety streamers. And it's easier to engage with those people, and it's more entertaining to watch them. When the point, you're only going to show up to an art stream if you want to learn about art, and that number of people is they don't go on live streams to learn that stuff. They watch a video that has been pre-recorded on YouTube, or they go to classes like on Domestika or Udemy or any number of different kinds of online courses. So live streaming as an entity for creative folks hasn't become an asset yet. That being said, AI didn't exist 3 years ago, and now people are using it for social proof, to prove that they are literally human, which is insane. So I think that live streaming for creative fields is going to increase. And I thought that LiveSpace had plugged into that, considering that Spencer was a musician and he had come out the other end of COVID and realized that was a necessary space, and it didn't happen. And I don't know whether they were reaching out in the wrong directions or what they were trying to, I don't know if they knew what they were trying to make yet, because it was only vaguely articulated in a lot of ways. And I would have loved for them to expand their efforts into fields that weren't being catered to currently. But they went in that direction anyway. And when you when you talk about bots and alerts and counts of none of that is associated with artists. It's all gaming. There's a massive vacuum of opportunity in that whole field that is only going to get more and more demanded because of AI. when you have to prove that you're a human, what do you do? And so
I wonder how much of that is just due to history, right? Like when you say you're going to start a game streaming site, it's been around long enough that people understand what you mean by that for the most part, or at least investors do. When you say you're going to make an area for artists or musicians, and all that stuff, what are they envisioning? Are they envisioning you're going to be like a Spotify? That's not really what you're trying to do. You're trying to be a live streaming platform. I wonder if some of that's just due to lack of precedent, for someone to look at and go, here's the PowerPoint deck I can put in front of these investors and they'll understand what I'm talking about, kind of thing.
This is part of the problem why, and again, and I circle around to my favorite butt of the joke today. Picardo. I don't remember it precisely, but Picardo is the same age as Justin. I don't remember if they're a month older or a month younger, but it's been around that long. But the problem is that Picardo is insulated because, one, it's, even though it's the quote artist Twitch, it's more like the furry artist Twitch. And more realistically, like the furry NSFW artist Twitch. And secondly, the owners of Picardo have really essentially is a testbed platform. If you look at the owners of the company, I forget the parent company, it isn't even their main. They started it as their main focus, but now they're focusing on home automation and green energy. They still own Picardo, but they really don't pay much attention to it. It's off in its own corner. And hell, Picardo actually had a mobile app before any of them, and the mobile app is dead because they never kept up with it. But again, the fact is that it does exist. It's a viable thing, but I can guarantee I'm mentioning Picardo, and half the people who are watching right now are like, "What the hell is that?"
Yeah,
I didn't even know what it was until like 2 years ago.
Yeah,
true.
When you mentioned it.
But that phenomenon, Shin, that you're talking about, with the kind of distracted by other kinds of endeavors that are more fascinating to them or something, I fear that's going to happen to Amazon and Twitch. And when Twitch gets sold because it's not generating enough money for Amazon, then we'll see an earth-shattering effect, ramifications in these live streaming world. And that will happen. It will happen eventually because that always happens with Amazon, and they will quickly offload it. And it may not happen next year or the year after that, but it will happen eventually. And so I think that we're going to have an earthquake in the live streaming, if it even still exists in the same way that it does now.
I think what you just said is I never, it didn't even cross my mind, but now that you said it, it makes perfect sense that they would sell it, because in the end, Amazon as a company really cares about profit, and it's probably, I don't know what's going to happen there, but selling Twitch would not be out of left field. And also, to your point, Corey, they don't necessarily, when it comes to artists and entertainers, because I do have like an empathetic, I do feel for empathy for artists and entertainers, and them trying to find their space in the streaming world. I think that I don't necessarily think that the tools that Lifespace builds for gamers are to the detriment of artists and entertainers. I just don't think no one has gone out of their way to build tools specifically for artists, right? It's not like if there couldn't be well, it used to be called Stream Action on Lifespace. But it's like channel points and channel redeems on Twitch. It's not like they couldn't be like, for instance, a channel redeem to have an artist play a particular song. I know like Spotify exists, but if Spotify doesn't exist, that would be a potential channel redeem, right?
Yeah,
Um, so like maybe it takes like this is like okay, so this is what I was talking about when I was like the platform the medium hasn't evolved yet because I don't think anybody has started thinking about there's a couple of interesting things that's happened in gaming that's actually directly related to like entertainers. There has been a suite of games that are specifically about like um music, like learning how to play instruments, and I'm not talking about like Rock Band or Guitar Hero. Um, Not a lot of people remember. Like I have a copy of it. Not a lot of people have. I just forgot the name of it. It just slipped off. Um, it just slipped out of my head just now. What's it called? There's a game out there that teaches you how to play guitar, right?
Guitar Smith.
Huh? Sorry.
Guitar Smith.
Guitarsmith. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Guitarsmith, right? I think it's going to take like some level of that level of creativity in order for the streaming space to evolve for artists and entertainers. Once somebody can figure out like how to build those type of I mean the means to do it, I'm sure it already exists, right? I'm sure if you can figure out how to take the frequencies in an instrument and channel them into a device, I'm pretty sure you can figure out like a creative way of how to utilize, for instance, the YouTube or the Twitch API to make an app or a tool that you can use in the streaming space. Once somebody, if one person, if a couple of people can figure it out, and if a couple of people can enjoy that tool as it is, then that'd be the start of streaming, like the streaming evolving for artists and entertainers. That's all that has to happen.
I bet you're right. I bet you're right. And I think that maybe part of why LiveSpace kind of dwindled down was because the tools that Spencer and Todd were putting together weren't cutting edge. They were already things that existed. They were all, you take a social stream and you meld it with live streaming. And so they weren't inventing anything new. They were just combining things in different kinds of kind of like recipes. And I think that wasn't enough. Nobody wanted another social stream. Nobody wanted another social site to do. And we already had 900 live stream spaces. So there wasn't anything fundamentally new. And I think they were struggling to figure out what that was going to be. And they didn't know that when they started. Believe me.
And that's fair. And that's all fair. Everything you said was I think is pretty fair and on point.
And I think the other part there too, Corey, is that they also have to. I agree that they have to do something different, but there's also the part of if you're too different, nobody really knows what you are and how what you're doing benefits them. So I do also think that them taking known concepts like a social feed and a known concept like a streaming service and kind of jamming them together, even though it didn't quite click on all those levels, I think it was like a mnemonic, like a way to get people to sort of wrap their heads around what they were trying to accomplish and get themselves to figure out how they could fit in a little bit more easily into that space as well.
Yeah, point taken. You're right. You're exactly right. I hadn't thought of it from that perspective. They can't get so far out of left field that people don't even know what it is. You're right. You're right.
Plus, one of the other things that going into it, and Todd had mentioned this on one of his, is they knew gamers were the low hanging fruit. They didn't have to reach out to gamers. Gamers were going to go up regardless. One of the things that they were working on at the time when it shut down was they were working on other means try to get other artists and musicians and whatnot. They were working on stuff like that. When I pointed out the gallery section at Pardo, that had gotten Todd's interest. Another person had discussed ways that musicians could, offer free tracks on their Livespace pages, and that had gotten attention as well. And somebody had also mentioned that Livespace was even working on a way to have Udemy / Skillshare style classes. That they were going to get some of the people they thought were, proven creators and work with them, develop classes and what. They were thinking long term ahead. Unfortunately,
do we know?
Unfortunately, it just it ran out of they ran out of money and ran out of time.
Do we know what kind of team they had besides Spencer and Todd? I mean, honestly, I know that Spencer was a coder, but most of his training was in classical music. And the bottom line is those two worlds don't necessarily always go together. So I'm wondering, did they have a team of people that augmented the skills they didn't have?
I've heard a whole bunch of varying numbers, but I only know two things for sure. Is that one, even though Spencer was the quote main coder, he wasn't the only coder, and that anybody who was on staff, and I found this out yesterday, anybody who was on staff wasn't paid. They were doing it. They were holding down day jobs while doing all.
Well, that's enlightening.
Yeah, there was definitely at least one other coder. I want to say the name was like Joe or something, because he had dropped by some of my streams occasionally and was talking about stuff with Livespace. So they definitely had at least part-time staff there. It sounds like for what they were trying to do.
Hey, Doris.
Welcome. So was the I guess it was a rumor that X Twitch or I guess X Twitch or X YouTube or X Twitch or X YouTube staffers were also staffed at Livespace. Was that just a rumor? It was just. It
may have been exaggerated. Alley Cat was from Twitch, and Todd had spent some time at YouTube.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. I think because I remember seeing that as well in the Discord channel that they had mentioned that they did have. I think even Todd mentioned it. I think at one point too that they did have some efforts from other streaming sites helping them, but whether or not they were still working for those other streaming sites or they were working somewhere else, I have no idea.
I didn't realize the level of bootstrapping it was. I didn't get that impression from the packaging that they put together and the presence that they had and the reach that they had developed. I didn't realize it was that low scale. And to be honest, that is the reason why they couldn't find investors. They didn't know how.
That's a good point.
Yeah. I mean, on the one hand, I applaud them for presenting themselves like they were a company running forward at full steam. But on the other hand, it was that much more devastating when it was just suddenly the rug pull,
Yeah.
I'm going to tell everybody that Livespace was awesome. I don't know about you.
Me too. It was my home. I loved it.
Honestly, in another in another reality, we wouldn't be having this. We wouldn't be having this talk on Twitch, or YouTube, or all the other places streaming to. We'd be doing our stuff on WebRTC, which was supposed to debut yesterday.
Not to mention, it was in final testing.
Yeah, it was supposed to debut yesterday.
Shit.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, I was streaming on the site the night before they went they went dark. I mean, I'd be there still now, singing their praises. I think they did a lot of good stuff. And like I said earlier in the stream here, I was getting old school Mixer vibes from just the community being as good as it was, and just like the vibe of the site, which is not an easy thing to accomplish these days.
I do not consider myself a Mixer streamer, despite me spending 2 years on there.
I never did. I never had a chance. The way that I'd hear people speak about it in hushed tones, like it was, and a lot of people are doing the same thing about Lightspace. A year from now, you may be hearing them both mentioned in the same breath.
Well, they did capture magic in a bottle in a lot of ways, and that was that's remarkable. It's really, I mean, it's a Camelot kind of experience for me. If it had a chance to grow, it would have been quite the thing.
Earth, you've been quiet up till now. Would you care to weigh in anything?
I need to lose weight.
Yay!
But no, I was just getting a vibe for what you guys were talking about. This is a live space memoriam, then.
Well, it's not just a live space memoriam, but we're also talking about also the fact that things are feeling cyclical again. Like nobody's learning. Beam is showing up to be a one trick pony. Vibe is apparently turning out to be worse. Share play
what's turning out to be worse?
Way too timid at what they're doing, and Picardo is Picardo.
Now, who are you talking about? Who was the first one you mentioned?
Beam.
Vibe streaming.
Oh gosh,
Beam, Vibe, take your pick. It doesn't really
Yeah.
matter.
I can't really remark on either of those. The only thing I'll say is I'm not going to remark on either of those. We'll see. I mean, if they become something, they become something. But I've seen platforms come and go, and I almost streamed on LiveSpace. I was real close, but what I'll say about LiveSpace is, I think what Corey mentioned a moment ago.
Not to mention Midgeworth. He was also about to come back, but no.
Wait, is Corey in here?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, okay, all right.
He's been pressing buttons to quit on us.
Wait. Corey's not here. I'm out later.
What the fuck?
No, I had not seen or chatted with him in a while. So
he's re-exiled himself back to Maker 2.
Of course, I haven't seen or talked to any of you, and well, I mean Shin and
I have exiled myself. The community and myself has exiled myself back to YouTube.
But it's
the
live
shows of the YouTube.
Lives.
But sorry.
LiveSpace captured that magic, and a good portion of that magic was the passion and the apparent transparent communication to their customers, us and the people streaming, the people watching, using their service. And they had a plan, right? I mean, they had a plan, and unfortunately it just looked like that the financially it just was not stable, right? They couldn't sustain. I mean, wasn't it like a week before that announcement? I was talking to you and Cornet. I'm like, I don't know, guys. This is looking. I don't know how they're going to continue to sustain this if something doesn't happen. And then sadly, we catch that announcement a week later, and I was disappointed. But I get it. It's just one of these things where your heart is bigger than your wallet, and that's going to happen. Even the quote unquote successful platforms, if you want to even use that term, Twitch and YouTube, I have not checked the numbers, but I hear like Twitch operates at a loss. They just got that big company money backing those efforts and sustaining it. And what would we do if Twitch and YouTube go away? Then everyone who uses those as a primary platform are going to pile on these other secondary services that I don't think would be able to scale up and handle it, and then they'd go under as well. It's like a house of cards. It's a precarious environment. I mean, I don't have cable television. My entertainment and learning platforms are YouTube and the various streaming services and Twitch and whatever platform of choice you guys are on when I catch you. But it's just what I go to for that that sort of good vibe, and I hope they stick around. It's tough. I mean, it's a tough market to survive in, even for the big dogs.
Which makes no sense to me in ways. In the first way that when Livespace died, we all essentially settled. We went back to our the old haunts, not really wanting to go back, but not really having the place.
I was saying, what else was there?
Yeah, exactly. And secondly, it just doesn't make sense to me that how video streaming is getting more expensive. Typically, technology, and you guys can correct me on this. Typically, technology gets just cheaper, but it seems like video technology seems to get at least so far, streaming is getting more and more expensive.
Yeah, I think you can largely blame Amazon for that because, I mean, Amazon bought Twitch for one reason, and that was to create interactive video service, IVS, which is basically Twitch packaged as an Amazon SaaS offering on the AWS platform, right? And that's what Kick uses to do its streaming and stuff. And Amazon has a vested interest to keep those costs very high. And everyone else who doesn't want to play the Amazon game has to go make their own infrastructure, and an infrastructure that scales to that level. Because again, we're talking about streaming live video, which you think is a well trodden space, but in reality, you're forcing tons of bits down the pipeline. You're forcing all these different codecs, all these different transport mechanisms. You have to have all these services put up on the other side, waiting for these incoming connections. Then you've got to have your real-time chat on top of that, plus all these real-time alerts. And it's your bandwidth is what you're really primarily paying for there. I mean, there is transcoding, despite being around for a long time, is still a very expensive endeavor. I remember the previous company I worked at that did digital signage in the browser. We had a whole service that we paid for that did transcoding of video to do video push through the browser, and like something like an hour. You paid by the hour. I think every hour was something like $6,000 an hour for an hour of transcoded video. And now you scale that up and you think about how much video is being transcoded on Twitch as we speak, across all the thousands of users and stuff. And that's a lot of GPU resources being used. That's a lot of CPU resources being used. That's a lot of bandwidth being used. And no one has been incentivized yet to make that affordable, unfortunately.
Actually, like you're right about that. but also non-competes are no longer a thing, right? So now it might be actually up to the software developers who were probably constrained by what company they were working for, the coders that were responsible for what you were talking about. Um, they could just go to they can now move around, right? So
Sure.
now it's just a matter of writing the code that's required um, to do what you were talking about for somebody else, or for like just the general um, software development community as a whole. Since open source is a thing, right? You have choices. So it might take some time for that to happen, right? Um, if you're a software developer right now and you don't and you're miserable at the place that you work at, you should probably still take time to like consider our options or where to go, or even if you want to go to like a startup or something like that. But it might it Twitch the stranglehold that Twitch has over um or YouTube or all this or any of the media platforms that are out there, they have over like online streaming might not hold for very long, because now the software developers responsible for making it happen can go anywhere.
That's heartening.
Yeah,
That's really heartening.
At a baseline level, that is absolutely correct. Assuming this actually goes through the courts and they don't block this new law, that non-competes have been a thing in technology circles for way too long, and they really should have been killed a long time ago. The problem is there's two additional parts of that increase the amount of time before we'd see something like that happen. And one of those is, while I or another software developer may not be under a non-compete anymore, I can't take IP with me, right? So anything that if I go to another job, I have to write everything from scratch. Not only from scratch, but I kind of have to almost do it as a white room or whatever they call a clean room implementation, where I don't use any of my notes. I don't use any. I have to kind of approach it from like a level 0 kind of approach from it. Because that could always come back to bite you if they find out, oh, you use some of your notes from your previous job to help you with this kind of thing. But also, secondly, Twitch has been around for what are we getting, like 10 years now, 11 years, something like that. And then, of course, obviously, we had Justin TV before that. Trying to reproduce 11 years worth of code in less than 11 years is a really difficult job. It's possible. It can happen, especially since you have the lessons that you've learned from it. But it's still a giant undertaking. So really, you do need at the minimum, you need that money there too to keep those people gainfully employed as full-time resources, because you're going to need every hour you can get out of them to get something off the ground, probably.
Yeah, and I mean, arguably, the end of the day, money, right? And now that the actual people behind the technology are going to be more costly, that's now additional costs being laid upon platforms that have not been profitable for years. And I think the reason why some of these independent services that are starting up, like Warner Bros. Well, actually, I think technically Warner Brothers is one of the ones actually making a profit. But of all the streaming services, a lot of these people in the last few years, I mean, the prices have just been going up and up. Disney, Hulu, Netflix, and the guys, the legacy media networks that basically have lost their television business, know that the streaming market is where it's at, are trying to recoup lost revenues from their years of being unprofitable, in their legacy markets. So the prices keep coming up and up. And when your backbone folks like Amazon, AWS, realize that the inflated demand is there, they want to make a profit too, right? So they're going to jack their prices up, which it feeds into itself, right? So at some point maybe it'll normalize, but right now it's just a price. I don't want to say price gouging, but the people will pay the price to sustain what they feel the future media markets are.
Is it possible that rather than create platforms that are casting a wide net, they start to niche down and say this platform is only relevant to these consumers, and start to realign a profit/investment ratio that is more appropriate for a smaller scale?
And that's a great idea. And I mean, arguably, that's what LiveSpace was trying to do, right? They wanted to appeal to creatives. Now, you introduce a new live streaming service, and nothing against gamers. I'm one of them. Gamers going to flood to that, right? Because especially when you incentivize things with a what were they doing, a 70-30? What was it? It was 85-15, right? And unless you were boosted. But it's just one of these things where people are going to flock to that. Now, do you want to create these gated communities? It's rough, right? I mean, creatives, it's pretty easy. If you look at, say, the art category on Twitch, I frequent that a lot. Always have. And there are very successful streamers there. I mean, the niche, if you would, the market is clear. People will watch people do art. A lot of these artists are VTubing and emote maker artists, but there are actual full-fledged professional illustrators, full-fledged illustrators and professional artists and art directors and stuff that even stream there, right? So it's the market is there, the interest is there, but when you've got one service trying to do it all, I mean, I don't know if I would want to create 5 different streaming platform accounts to track all my various interests if I got one service providing all that, and that tends to be where the largest community is. It would take work, and maybe that is what needs to happen for various platforms to be successful or profitable. I don't know. I'm not a numbers guy. I'm not a finances guy. This is all just gut feelings for what I've seen over the last few years.
They say YouTube has enough video every minute that it would take one person, I can't remember what the ratio is, like 24 hours worth of content within 1 minute. That's how fast and how much YouTube has a corner on our video collection, our world of recording.
I think also there's another sort of barrier, and it's a barrier that was artificially created by Twitch and YouTube, and that is, and we saw the clamoring for this on LiveSpace as well, view counts, and I want viewers and you have no viewers, and I don't want to stream to nobody, and I want to see my view counts. I want to be able to promote my all these analytics and numbers crunching and everything. And I think it's a product of how Twitch and YouTube handle themselves, because everything over there is about numbers, and they've pushed it so much that streamers in general have this notion that the numbers are the only thing that matter in many ways, even if they're just doing it as a hobby, and they're never going to try to make a business out of it.
Yeah, that's the hobby versus career. Now, the career-minded folks, it's both the what are my numbers and what are my sustainable numbers, right? Because you got people dropping a month here or there for whatever reasons, and then if you don't keep up in your game, if you don't keep their engagement, so then you have people playing those games of what I have to try to appeal to everyone. I have to try to draw in as many numbers as possible, and at the end of the day, I feel that's a losing strategy as well.
Subathon every month.
Right?
Oh yeah, you
365 days
if you're in a
subathon.
business, because on a subconscious level, all this stuff is soaked in. I was just joking with Mem at the beginning of the stream that starting off, and the only three numbers of viewers I've got were the bots, and it's like, yeah, I was joking at the time, but subconsciously, even at that point,
And it would be disingenuous to say that I don't look at those things. I look at them. I don't know how much importance I place on it. Like, I mean, if I look at us right now, we're up one viewer. There's at least one individual or AI thing that is sitting in the viewership of this stream. And I think all of us are actually in the stream, right? There's 6 of us, so there's two. There's two. Two people that are out
this
there.
This is the current number count, in case nobody cares. I'm looking at 7 viewers on Twitch. On YouTube, I've got none, and strangely enough, on Picardo, I've got 2.
Now that's actually what is viewing the video. You've got, it looks like, oh god, I don't know, 24 bots parked in your chat, right? But
none of them have tried to tell me GFX yet.
Yeah. I'm surprised Twitch still suffers from those. Hey, if you click this link, you can buy subs, viewers, primes, blah 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 blah. Still those.
But this is the thing. You're, as a streamer, as a content creator, influencer, super hip cool dude or dudette. I mean, you're catering to a saturated market, and LiveSpace was a great cross section of this. I mean, I felt as a viewer only, non-streamer, my time on the platform was probably more valuable to streamers than anyone that was streaming there, right? Because they wanted viewers. It seemed like it was a very cannibalistic environment where, if you're actually engaged, and I'm not talking about showing up in someone's stream and saying, I'm here to support you, and then completely ignoring it, but just sitting in their chat, right?
The amount of cry bitches that was on LiveSpace. Hey, my channel's dead. LiveSpace is dead. We. First of all,
are we talking about a certain individual who started out on Justin TV, and I see nothing?
I wouldn't want to call individuals into this.
Oh,
the point
you wanted to.
The point I was trying. Well, hang on. Let me make my point, because I'm not going to be here much longer. The point I'm trying to make is that if you've got a platform environment that is full of creators but no actual dedicated viewers, what is engagement, right? Engagement is people coming back, people being there, and actually adding to your content or contributing in some fashion. People just lurking. I mean, I'm not slamming on lurkers. I lurk a lot too, but if there's no one actually engaging with the streamer, then what is the streamer doing? What are they producing live stream content? Are they producing VODed content that would be watched later by people on demand? There's various reasons and whys and how-tos to streaming, and at the end of the day, you got to ask yourself, what kind of a streamer am I, and when do these numbers actually matter to me? Because I don't think anyone makes money on VODs, right? If someone sees a VOD and they go back and subscribe, then you have your subscription. But I think probably for the larger streamers in these platforms, most of their actual revenue comes from either sponsor partnerships they get, or their actual donations, right? The things that allow you to donate more and or take less of a tax on that. Like Twitch for affiliates is what is it 50? Well, it's 50-50 for everyone, right? unless they have Partner Plus
They
or whatever.
recently announced Partner Plus 7020. That Twitch did.
Yeah, but the trying to get that is that's a whole other game unto itself, because it's like
I don't think Twitch is going
3
to
months
survive
straight.
720.
3 months straight of sustained viewer count, right? And it starts tomorrow, right? It starts in a few hours, I think, when and some people have hit it. I mean, some of the streamers who went hard for that hit it, but I hear that needs to be re-upped each year. That only gets you that for a year, and then at some point you're going to have to get back on the treadmill and do it all again if you're not
Wait a
engaging.
minute. Isn't that what Trovo did with their partnership? I knew that's
that's why Trovo. Part of the reason why Trovo has been called a sweatshop.
Now that's based on one remark I heard about it. I've not actually gone and read anything up the program, so I'm part of the problem. I need to inform myself.
I was told that Trovo finally pulled their head out of their asses, and now everyone can have permanent partnership as long as they.
I mean, good luck. Like every time I look over there, it's I feel like I need an accountant to tell me what the rules are for the Trovo 500, because it's like trying to read lawyerese. It's so complicated. They made such a simple concept so complicated that I just kind of look at it and go, nope, I'm good.
And online, we've had Becky Taylor join us. Hey, Becky. We're all chatting about a whole bunch of things. Mainly right now, it's why Trovo was a sweatshop, and yes, I will die on that hill.
I wanna say something spooky, and this is for SharePlay. SharePlay, I hope you guys are fucking ready, because Gamer Pharaoh just stepped into your Discord server.
All 5 monitors ready?
4K streaming, 5,000 bitrate, 500,000 bitrate, 4K.
You'll never die.
We don't need to go picking on individuals. I wouldn't want to add to that drama.
Bruh, Gamer Pharaoh's about to face the full wrath of SharePlay if he keeps up with that.
I'm fully aware of who they are, and I don't think it's that big of a deal. But
is that we're here to make fun of platforms?
Yeah. We're all aware of the meme.
I'm still siding with Sainted Lord and Speed Demon's word on SharePlay just hanged themselves when they went into public beta. I still stick by
honestly,
that.
I don't think SharePlay is long with the world because they're too limited. They're too timid.
I'm not familiar with them at all.
And, even if they were to open up tomorrow and say, yeah, we're about, art now, I don't think Corey and I are really going to build much of an audience there, because we're going to look at the name and think gaming.
I think by the time SharePlay has run its course, it's going to have a whole lot of technology and architecture behind it. But because they have not fully committed to it, it'll just kind of be for naught at that point.
But by the way, Becky, if you've got opinions, please by all means type them in. We'll read them out here. It's like we're all just opinionating right now.
Well, one thing
No, go on.
One thing I can say: don't expect PeerTube to be a good live stream substitute.
Speaking of PeerTube, Shin was having a fucking rough one with the live chat.
He and I were talking about this yesterday.
Theoretically, it's great, but it's going to take them a long time to get to where they need to be.
They're operated by a non-profit French company of Fremasoft, I think it's called.
Yeah, they only have about 10 employees, and they have resolutely refused to accept donations that are over X amount because they don't want to.
That writes from the first line of the PeerTube code to the last one is by one person only.
Yeah, that's the problem with FOSS stuff. A lot of times,
And
that's
here
the way
too-
that. Yeah.
just updated to version 6.1.0. And there is some notes that is very interesting. Let me read one. This release changed the way how PeerTube counts a video view. Be ready to get your pitchforks out. Views are taken into account after 10 seconds instead of 30. It can be changed via YAML config. Views use a session ID generated by the web browser. Viewbot exploitation instead of using the requested IP, or can be changed with the YAML. The goal of this change is to get closer to how other platforms like Mux, Vimeo, or Instagram work.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's a problem when you allow, not to get too technical, but that's a problem when you allow chat that's anonymous, right? If you force people to log in order to participate fully in the chat, you eliminate the need to go through all those hoops to figure out who's watching and who isn't. Right? You just don't count anyone who's on the page and not logged in. Done.
I remember fucking Clone streamed and someone trolled him by boosting his viewership up to 69. I saw that whole thing happen.
Yeah.
All right, here's a point of clarification on the Partner Plus program. I went and looked it up. I went to educate myself. You entered the Plus program after 3 consecutive months of more than 100 or more than 300 plus points. You remain in the Plus program for a minimum of 12 months. So once you qualify, you buy yourself 12 months or longer if you continue to satisfy the qualification criteria while in the program. So you can keep earning points towards your continued Plus program participation. But once you're in for a minimum of 12 months. After that, it's just sustainability.
Yeah, but if I'm not mistaken, Prime subs don't count for that. Bits don't count for that. It's actual real subs, right?
Correct. I believe that's the case.
Yeah.
There's a whole page of what are plus points, right?
Yeah, it's they've created
it's a mini game. They've created a whole mini game.
Let's be honest.
Basically, Twitch just went to Trove and said, "Hey, can I copy your homework? Sure, just change it up a bit." That's what I'm hearing.
I honestly, after looking at it, yeah, I think that's pretty accurate.
Yeah, I'm surprised Tencent hasn't decided to pull the plug on Trovo.
And isn't unheard of as far as business tactics are concerned.
I don't think Tencent will pull the plug on Trovo because they need it as part of their way to get it viable. I mean, what's their option? Turning Discord into a streaming service?
I still have a theory that Tencent might be the one to eventually buy Twitch.
That's why
they're just keeping Trovo around.
U.S. and European antitrust will leave it alive.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't think of that.
If anything, I suspect that it will either go to a rival company like Alibaba, or Pixiv might get bored and say, "Hey, we'll buy it." Can't do any worse than Pixiv Sketch.
Well, you never know. There could be kind of something out of left field. Pinterest could buy it, or something to completely go in a completely different direction than what they're thinking of. So who knows? Not gonna happen in 3 years.
This time Monday, we'll hear that Corey Artist Incorporated bought Twitch.
Yeah, when I win that lottery. Woo!
Yeah.
Woo-hoo. Oh, the Ma and Pa pizza shop down the street from me really loves streaming. They might buy it.
Yeah. Microsoft might buy it. I hear they have a good reputation with streaming sites.
No, they're gonna pull another Mixer shutdown. Now, Microsoft's already in deep fucking water with Windows and ads and Windows 11 TPM requirements, and shutting down Mixer and selling out to Facebook.
Technically, they didn't
Facebook,
sell it
listen.
to Facebook. They didn't sell it to. They made an agreement to transfer their personnel roles there, but that's not selling. And they transferred they redirected the Mixer domain to FBGG. Technically, they didn't sell. They just shut it down.
Microsoft,
would
that's
be-
enough destruction from you in a lifetime. You destroyed an operating system which everybody liked. You destroyed a streaming platform everyone made family and friends with. And now you're trying to make Windows 11 your newest operating system, which is a fucking pain of code over Windows 10, even worse by shoving ads in there.
Well,
And the latest stunt you're pulling...
Leaning off the Microsoft hate for a moment, they're not alone in that. I mean, it's fun to bash on them, but I mean, I see similar things from lots of other corporations, whether they're making an OS or they what is it, the F around and find out? I mean, to a degree, they're trying to find out what works. I mean, they're pushing the boundaries and limits all the time. I mean, Apple does this. You want to start talking about how they built-in obsolescence, life cycle for hardware, proprietary this, that, and the other thing. You want that USB-C cable? Well, you can't use a normal one. You gotta pay $60 for one. Every company does stuff like that. I mean, at the end of the day, they need to make money to stay in business. Now, I'm not saying Microsoft's hurting for money or anything, but we're much more focused on the smaller guys. If you want to call Twitch small, and what are the Trovo, and I'm not, I'm bad. I played around on Trovo when a lot of people I know went there. I think I was on Kick for a day before I ran away. I never streamed anywhere. The only places I've ever streamed are here in Glimish, but here being Twitch. I know you're on YouTube as well, Shen, but yeah, at the end of the day, why do people stream? For me, I did it as a social outlet. I never went into it with the notion that I'd be making money. So while the numbers were there and seemed relevant, I mean, I didn't put a whole stock in it. I mean, if I had 2 people show up in my chat and wanted to talk with me, I mean, I was happy. I was ecstatic. I can't imagine what someone with like 500, 1,000 people would do, right? And Becky just said for her, she says it's boredom. Yeah, and I did. I found you on Twitch, by the way, Becky. I subbed to your channel, I think last night or the day before. Keep going, keep making content. I love your Japanese series, but it's rough because you want to go somewhere where you've got visibility, and there are advantages for Twitch for actual live visibility. And YouTube, man, I tell you, it is hard to find anyone live on YouTube. Most of their stuff is on demand discoverability, right? There's
someone who streams on YouTube, me.
I think there's a lot to. I think there's a lot of things that. I think there's either an elephant in the room or a blind spot that a lot of people aren't considering in terms of how the space works. So in terms of like, why do people watch streamers? I would actually more along the lines of ask the question, why do people use the internet? There used to be a time when, so this is like, I don't know, 15 years ago, before Twitch was Twitch. It was probably more Justin TV. I wasn't there at the beginning when Justin TV became Twitch, but I was still using the internet to do certain things like invest in ideas that I thought were that were just good ideas, right? I'm not in the same like financial position back then that I am now, but like that's the thing that I used to do. Does anybody hear a popping sound?
Oh, that's Doris actually typing into the chat. So don't. That popped
Okay.
up.
All right.
That's
Oh, yeah,
actually
So-
a text chat in the side.
Mhm.
No worries.
So there used to be the environment when it comes to trust. I think trust is really important when people are using the internet, because trust means that like people like if there's a lot of trust in a certain space, like people feel like they can do whatever they want and not suffer. Well, they don't. If it's perfectly innocent stuff, they don't even worry about consequences. They just do whatever the hell they want. And I feel like
Twitch, Kick. Sorry.
yeah, and I think that like I invested back in the day in some products. Like I invested in FaceRig, I invested in a video game that didn't do very well, but it was like a Mega Man spinoff or whatever. I think that the like people the way people approach the internet now isn't the same way people approached the internet a couple of years ago. And what used to happen was that a couple of years ago is that like the internet as a place of getting information as opposed to like getting terrible information or finding out about new things or just trying out new things, right? The internet, with the explosion of like big tech and with the explosion of like all the new technologies that we enjoy today, it was a better place for technology then than it is now. Nobody looks at technology the same way that they used to because of everything that's happened since then. And there's been so much that has happened since then. And so, what people don't realize is that with all these controversies, I feel like people are less inclined to try new things because they want to, if it's unsafe to just try something new because you're not even sure if the person behind the curtains is the next big name scammer, right?
Oh, Roger, you hit the nail right on the head there. That's where we get a lot of inertia with social media and people refusing to jump ship to different platforms and stuff like, despite all of the bad news and all these corporate shenanigans that are happening. So I think inertia is what you're talking about. I think that's a real thing. It's a very real thing. And it does boil down to trust. I think you're right.
Right. So like for instance, instead of like Blue Sky, I'm on Blue Sky right now. Blue
We're
Sky is
actually
made
all
by
on Blue Sky.
we're all
Except
on
me
Blue Sky.
because I deleted my account because I no longer needed social media.
No biggie. And
Okay,
that's
everybody except for T, who's missing out on everything, is on Blue Sky.
But social media is such a toxic cesspool.
Well,
Fucking
okay.
everybody.
That's why we're on Blue Sky.
We get it. We get it. We get it.
That gets to what I'm saying though. Like it didn't always used to be like that. So I think that like I think people, okay, so I think part of the reason to me, so I look at this from a different perspective, right? I look at it as I don't look at lurkers and gamers as a detriment. I look at them as potential people who haven't tried anything new yet. I'm not looking for the people, for example, that only play first person shooters because until the day they die, they're only going to play first person shooters, right? Nobody like I'm not gonna. It does sound like I'm kind of insulting them, but that's just how they are. And like if they finally decide to try something different, good for them. More to them. If they decide to keep playing first person shooters, more to them. That's what makes them happy. Fine. But when I look at people who are gamers, I look at them as people who are also potentially might try something new in the future, but only if they feel comfortable in trying something new in the future. If the space doesn't have any trust involved, like I get, man, I can't tell you how many times like somebody has come to me on social media or on my stream or just crawled into my Discord and be like, like I need a commission and I'm not even sure that that person is a scammer. Like that's where that space is right now. It didn't always used to be like this. And so I think that like with the for so here's a perfect example. Instead of me ranting about a concept, I'll give you a perfect example. Which is what I was trying to do earlier. Blue Sky came out, but more people are going to Threads than Blue Sky. Why? Because Blue Sky is a brand new thing, but everybody knows Facebook. Everybody knows Facebook. Everybody knows Threads. Everybody knows Mark Zuckerberg for a very long time would I'd like to have had what
Your data.
Jack Dorsey had with Twitter, right? Facebook is worried. Facebook's biggest concern right now is becoming obsolete. That's why they have Horizons VR, right? So and Twitter's downfall because of Elon Musk. A lot of people are migrating to Threads and not Blue Sky, right? And Jack Dorsey endorsed Blue Sky. Jack Dorsey pushed Blue Sky a bit, right?
Well, if you want to get technical, Blue Sky is a spin-off of Twitter.
Yeah, it's also made up of like former Twitter people. They literally hired.
Literally, it used to be a part of Twitter.
Yeah, right. So, I wouldn't say it was literally. Yeah, it was a pet project, I think, or something like that. I heard something.
It was their internal project to federate. Then got
correct. You're right. You're right about that. Okay, yeah, you're right about that. But nobody wants to go. Like, more people are going to Facebook and Threads than they are Blue Sky because more people are more comfortable with Blue Sky, and that despite what happened with Facebook, and I think that's more of a like I'm getting into the heads of the consumer and what the consumer just wants to have fun on the internet, but I think they also understand that they won't have the same type of fun they used to have years ago, so they're just going with what works. I don't think people are just making business decisions based on profit, but it's not too. It doesn't do good for anybody making money overall. I don't think businesses right now, or at least technology is operating under the same assumptions that they were several years ago. I don't think they're. I think there are certain. I'm not sure what they're. I'm not sure if they're completely sold on what their long-term business model is because so much has happened. I think they just stick with what works, or they could just be working off of like a lot of short-sighted predictions or assumptions. But I don't think. I think it might be a while before anything new happens because the technology space, people don't look at the technology space with the same rose-colored glasses as they did years ago because so much trust, rightfully so, that people don't want to acknowledge has been broken. And I think that's a problem. I think that's part of that. I think that also is a component to why LifeSpace failed. By the way, I don't think that like everybody wants to go with what's popular, but what made these platforms big in the first place was that people who didn't really care about whether or not they were big names, just wanted to have fun on the internet, went onto these platforms, and then it just grew over time, right? It's not the same attitude. Now they are the. I'll stop. I think I've said it.
I think what I think you're getting at is I think something that I've also thought about, which is big thing is right now you've got two 600-pound elephants in streaming, right? And that's the YouTube and that's the Twitch. They can throw their weight around because they've been around so long that they have first whatever it's called in business, first to market advantage, or whatever you want to call it. And so they've been, just for the sake of them being around for so long, they're well known, and they are able to kind of flex that muscle. And I think, to your point, the problem that all of these other up and coming streaming sites have had, and LiveSpace included in that, is we really need somebody who has an idea on how to break viewers out of their well-established habits. You need something that will get them to go, oh, I want to actually check out this other site because there's something about it that I like as a viewer, not as a streamer. Because obviously streamers, I mean, there's always going to be streamers wanting to switch sites because, of the options we have right now are all their own kind of hell. And that is the big problem. That was the big problem with Mixer. That was the problem with all these sites, is that you can get a lot of streamers over there and you can get streamers watching other streamers, but you really need to find a way to get viewers to come out of their well-established habits and come on over. And I see so many sites launch without like a mobile app. I see them launch without like a TV app, or even, these different alternative ways of viewing the platform. And it's you're making it harder for someone who doesn't want to go out of their normal routine to break from their normal routine. You're not really giving them that incentive. It's got to be blindingly easy or obvious, or there's got to be something that hooks them. And I think that's what they're driving at.
Yeah, that's what I'm driving at.
And that's and I agree entirely there. And the first person to come into this space, business person to come into this space that figures out how to capture that lightning in a bottle, I think they'll have a good run at it. It's just, what is that, and how do you do that? That's the big issue, because I write software for a living. I can write all this code and it's all for naught if nobody wants to switch to using it, right? I could put every feature under the sun in there, and I could make streamers' lives ridiculously easy if I wanted to do a streaming site, right? But that doesn't bring the viewers, right? The viewers need some kind of hook, and that's both both a technology problem and also a community problem, right? You want them to have some kind of community, some kind of draw that brings them in, and I don't know what that is. I don't think anyone knows what that is yet.
It seems like the trust factor that Roger was talking about a little bit is one of those things that if you have a name and you can throw your weight around at a new thing, then people are more likely to jump on that because of familiarity and trust and less risk. And so I think that maybe, the big dogs being able to try something different is easier than a small puppy dog trying to do the same thing. And the only way to mitigate that is to back up your, if you're going to be small, to back it up with a crap ton of money to inspire that trust, or to surround yourselves with people who inspire trust from other endeavors. And I don't know whether that's happening right now.
Correct.
I'm not sure.
That's the challenge. That's the challenge that I don't think people, even at any of the platforms, or anybody has actually considered. Like, they haven't considered. They just haven't considered that the environment. There's been a lot of poisoning the well, yeah.
I mean, it's very. I mean, you look at the latest two editions that have come out in the wake of announced themselves in the wake of LiveSpace, and both of them have a very similar problem, which is they don't inspire trust.
Literally, here's an interesting point. Literally, after I joined LiveSpace, there was a YouTube channel that like some rando with a small amount of viewers released a video on YouTube saying that making assumptions or just stating on their video that LifeSpace is a scam, but then when you watch the entire video, they don't have anything concrete to say about LifeSpace that will point to the fact that they were conducting shady behavior. It was just it was just a title, and it was just LifeSpace. It might be a scam, and that's all. And it was just there, and I'm like, why does this video? Why does this need to exist? That doesn't make any sense.
There's two things at work there, and one is negativity sells, right? So you have that same problem on social media where people take up a position that maybe even themselves don't buy, but it's one that they know is going to get those rage clicks, the rage bait kind of thing.
Bait sells.
Sadly,
second part of that,
Fox believed those lies, and now he is basically mind-fucked believing that LiveSpace was a scam.
And so here's the second part of that as well, and I'm specifically thinking about that an exchange that happened in the Discord. That is that I'm constantly reminded of a quote from, of all things, Star Trek: The Next Generation, an episode called, I think, Peak Performance it was. In it, and this is a quote that's kind of stuck with me throughout my life, and that is, Picard says, it is entirely possible to commit no errors and still lose. That's not a failing, that's life.
I've been hearing that a lot.
Yeah, that's a famous Star Trek quote.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing to remember here, because I think a lot of people are very angry, and rightfully so, because this kind of came out of nowhere. They invested a lot of themselves in LiveSpace and what it was going to do and all that stuff, and I think just because LiveSpace failed doesn't mean that it was a scam. It doesn't mean that it was something shady was going on. Sometimes you just fail. It's just life, right? You do everything right and it just doesn't work out. I think
there's a statistic that's 80% of new businesses fail.
Yeah, exactly. I advise anybody, yes, there's emotions and all that stuff, but take a step back and just have some perspective and just realize that, sometimes things just don't work out, and that's just life, right? And not everything has to be a scam or a tax write-off or any of these things. It could just be that they tried and they just couldn't make it past the finish line.
Actually, it's funny that you mentioned that, because take 20 years ago, one company that was thought of as the biggest scam was Amazon. Amazon was not profitable for its first 20 years of business.
Yeah.
And they were
According
doing
to old IRS rules, you have to be profitable within 6. They're the reasons why that rule doesn't exist anymore. Literally.
Todd and Spencer were doing things in their own way to be able to substitute for a lack of massive amounts of backing or funding and a huge number of people. I mean, who puts themselves out there twice a week in front of everybody to literally get slammed, potentially? Who does that? That was incredibly endearing to me. I mean,
I'm so glad you mentioned that. The I think he's a CEO or he's like one of the top people at Twitch. He didn't start like making his own stream until Todd did it. I don't think anybody caught that. I don't think
Well,
anybody.
the thing, well, not only that, but he only did it as long as there was that crisis, and then stopped after once the crisis was over. And then over at Kick, has Eddie ever done that? I don't even know who the CEO of YouTube is.
Right. Like none of these people did, but Todd did it. And a DJ, I think his name is DJ Clancy on Twitch now.
And
But like,
Clancy.
yeah,
Clancy.
like he's been doing it a lot more now. But he didn't do any of that. He didn't do any of that before.
That single move that he did, just making that one choice, was enough to. I mean, he created so much community that just that one choice, just streaming twice a week for an hour, that was really amazing and completely different, and really a low tech way of being able to spread word of mouth and make people really gravitate toward that. And I think that's part of why everybody was so shocked and surprised and hurt, because he inspired a level of, in his own naive, oh my gosh, I don't know what I'm doing, my microphone doesn't work, help, that kind of way. I mean, that was just really endearing.
Oh,
So,
absolutely.
anyway.
Yeah. Half the time his stream never worked. Kept getting microphone feedback and all that, but it came off as a lot more authentic than
Yes.
a lot of these slickly produced stuff that you see here on Twitch.
Guys, I have to wrap this up. I have to go.
Oh dear.
And
After
speaking of
8.
microphone failures,
Yeah, speaking of
Robot.
microphone failures.
Sorry.
Beep boop, microphone cannot compete, must
I'm
restart
sorry.
process.
Anyway, this is a joy and a pleasure, and I love you guys. And I Shin, you got to do this again. I will gladly attend the party.
I hope I never have to do this again because it means another site has failed.
I mean, you might have to do a wake for Picardo at some point, right?
No. Ricardo is like a zombie. It'll survive on its own furry.
Okay, I gotta go. Have a good one, guys.
All right, see you, Corey. Have a good one.
Yeah, have a good night. It was great talking to you.
Jesus. And then the aftermath when Livespace shut down. The masks of people saying who they say they are came right off. Let me tell you that.
Again, I don't want to point. But it became fairly clear in many cases who was actually there for the community, or who was there from the very beginning.
My friend lost 2 friends, and he doesn't even know why. What the problem was.
That's fucked up. That's really.
They banned him from their Twitch and kicked him from their Discord, and just like crowd control, no given explanation as to why. And I'm sitting here thinking like, so that's how the masks came off. Really interesting.
I know, and I'm not, and unfortunately, I'll admit I was guilty of this. Sponge, who took 6 months off of streaming for one reason or another, showed up right around the same time as Vibe did. Both are based in the UK, and everybody immediately assumed, including myself, I will admit it, that he was behind Vibe, and was doing it as a temper tantrum because he made a public offer to buy Livespace, and it failed. He's since come out and said, nope, not me. I have no idea who's behind. I'm going to take his word, his word at face value for that. But a lot of people, again, myself included, assumed him.
People have nothing else to do with their time.
If it helps, I got painfully reminded of my past, so had a couple of rounds of emotional breakdowns. Very nice.
Unfortunately, that's.
I am by no means diagnosed with depression or PTSD. I do not claim to be. I just experience the same symptoms of said emotional state. I can't help it. I have ADHD. Of course I'm gonna get super sensitive over things that are meaningful to me.
Yeah, I mean, this has been emotionally draining for everybody. I mean, literally, a site that we all love shuts down in 2.5 hours, and then the Discord
I can even
goes
tell
away.
when
2 weeks after that, and there's not a damn thing any of us can do about it.
I can tell, like, I was stalking Fawn's Twitter anonymously, and when I saw her fucking breakdown tweets, I knew somewhere in those tweets I was part of the fault. Somehow.
You're at fault for everything. We just, the Black Plague, moon landings,
the fucking Ebola virus.
Yeah, we just keep you around here just to blame something.
I think another competitor will show up, but it might be like that'll have like the spirit of my life space, but not have like a life space in mind. I think someone else would show up with like for one thing would probably will have better revenue, like investors behind it, because it's not like anything that LifeSpace did. I don't think anybody at LifeSpace did anything wrong. Like, I don't think anything on their end resulted in like what happened with them. I think LifeSpace just needed time, if anything, for one thing. But that it might not be the only thing. But time was definitely something that they needed. And somebody else will come along and probably with a different vision in mind, probably with a different approach in mind, probably at a better time than now, right? Because I don't think right now, I don't it doesn't make any sense to me that any streamer with a large following didn't go to LifeStage just to get more money, just to get that boosted. It was so easy to sign up to get boosted, and
I am
like, you could
sick of people only thinking about money. What about the fun, the friendship? Does that mean jack squad to you?
Well, no, well, in the end of the day, like, the experience is what matters with when it comes to like why do people consume the streamer, right? The reason why people watch Iron Mouse is because they get a certain experience out of Iron Mouse. It could be, you could say friendship. It's a parasocial relationship if you still think about it, because you're like one out of like 1,000 viewers, right, chatting in their chat channel. But they're getting a experience that they don't feel like they're getting out of other people, which is the reason why, again, they're grounding themselves, right? It's the experience that they're getting. So I think somebody with just all the right cards, because I think now it's a matter of timing and somebody with the right cards. That's all I think. I mean, Twitch and YouTube might be big players, but that doesn't mean that the original disruptors can't get disrupted themselves, and that's what people tend to forget. They just need the right angle, right? So yeah.
I wonder though, like, how does one how does one put the genie back in the bottle? Because what we're talking about is, bringing the hobby back into streaming. And at some point, it started out as a hobby, became a business, and it became a monetization thing. Now that genie's out of the bottle, like how do you go back to it being a hobbyist thing where we can get a lot of people who are not interested in making it their full-time career to sort of sit down and build an actual community? Because to try to draw away the people who've made a career out of it's going to be almost, I would say, impossible, because they already have a community. It's already well established. They already know what's expected of them on the platforms that they're on, and the price of moving to another platform would be, the difference between them having to get a job outside of streaming versus, continuing as full time. So how does one bring that sense of fun, that sense of I guess in a way aiming for the right reasons back into the space?
Ironically, go ahead.
So I've actually thought about this a lot. I also like watching people as a whole, just to do things, and no amount of I'm just gonna say it because no amount of me talking about it is ever gonna stop people from just doing what they naturally do. There are too many people in this space that are just doing it for money, and there are too many people that are in the space that don't try to understand the space. There are too many people. There are just too many people that are just doing it and not understanding. I don't know if you know who Maximilian Dude is. He's really into fighting games. He's
I know who he is.
Yeah, I know.
His whole thing is fighting games, and I look at him. I listen to him. I listen to what Ninja said about how he got started. I listen to how Iron Mouse got started. I just listened to their stories of how they became who they became. Ninja was unemployed, and then he just started playing Fortnite nonstop because he was probably fucking depressed that he didn't have a job, and then he just became Ninja. That's all he did, right? Maximilian Dude.
No, actually, Ninja started as a Halo esports player. Then he tried H1Z1, then PUBG, and then settled with Fortnite.
I think the point is that this wasn't an instant.
He was just playing first person shooters for a long period of time, and he was unemployed, and so he just did it. He just did it for a long period of time. He didn't think about money. He didn't think about and that's how, by the way, that's how a lot of YouTubers got started out when money wasn't a factor. They did it because it was a fun thing to do, and people were entertained by it. When money got into people, a lot of people are like capitalism ruins anything. There is some truth to that, but to create something genuine, there has to be something genuine in the experience to get out of it. And that's the thing that people miss. Maximilian Dude once said on his stream, just do the I forget the exact quote. Just do the thing, and over time, people will enjoy it. And people will sign on. It's a slow build up. This idea that you have to be titillating in order to get views. It's a short term. People, so many people are saying it now, but it's a short term strategy. Just like be genuine. People over time being genuine works, because when you're not genuine, all these factors happen. You burn out. You run out of material to make. You like things that happen to any human being when all they're doing when all their motivation is to make money, including investing in scams. Somebody telling you that like we can scam your audience into like buying into like this thing and then telling your audience about it and then stealing money from your audience. Like when you do it for money, you will eventually time is your biggest problem and it will kill you. And so I think that a lot of people who are in the space forget how the space is made out of, because I'm one of them. The space is made out of college students who are just having fun on the internet, right? That's what it was made up on. That's what it was built upon. That's where we're at now. Um, some of the biggest names in League of Legends, Double Lift is a college dropout. Doublelift is a college dropout. He used to do. He was in college and then he left college. Pokemon graduated college and then she started streaming. Right. Like understanding these factors. I think it's important to understand streaming. And it is not a short term. Once you put the genuine back, once you do the content for genuine reasons over a longer period of time, you might make money, but that shouldn't have been the factor to begin with. And I think a lot of people don't understand that about the space. If there's another angle to come out streaming from, it would be because like you already had something going in the space that you were in, whatever that space may have been, but it wasn't working out in that space for whatever reason it was, and then you decided to try out streaming, and then and then your shit was good. It was just really good, right? And then I get if that works out for you, more power to you. And to be fair, it would help streaming mature a little bit. That's the way I think. That's what I think is going to happen with streaming that I could predict personally.
I think you're on the right path, and ironically, I was going to say what will probably we're actually seeing it in the game sphere. Gaming was started out way back when, as a fun thing, and then these companies sprouted up, and then these mega corporations bought these companies, and then you ended up with people like the recently departed Bobby Kotick, who has actually gone on record saying he hates gamers. This is the guy who was the head of Activision Blizzard. He hates gamers, thinks they're stupid, and he was in it only for the money. And he admitted this not once, not twice, but in several interviews. Flat out said that.
Bobby Kotick single-handedly ruined Blizzard.
Yeah. And the thing is that he's just saying the quiet part out loud. How many other CEOs out there are thinking the exact same thing, but have a little more brain cells to keep it up? The point is that gaming, especially AAA gaming, has pretty much become stale, mediocre, and whatnot. And what are we seeing? A backlash. We are seeing a backlash by all these indie games coming out that are, again, falling into the roots of gaming, where you're doing it for the love of the project. You might get lucky and you might make some serious cash like Stardew Valley or Shovel Knight or whatever, but that was never the point. The point is that, hey, I remember all these games I played as kids. I want to make something just as awesome. And now we're seeing we're seeing the circle come around again. I think ultimately that's probably what's going to ultimately happen with streaming. Somebody's going to come up with something that was attention. It almost happened with Beam, and unfortunately, it's the original Beam, that is. And then it got bought out, turned it into the slickly packaged mixer that still retains some of it, but it's clearly meant as a marketing vehicle for Microsoft rather than its original intent. We all know what happens. For all we know, and I have my doubts. I'll say this right now publicly. I have my doubts. When I told the owner of Vibe that people do not trust anything right now because they've seen the wreckage of one or two sites coming from all these sites that promised them the moon and either didn't deliver or were trying to deliver but ran into walls. And his answer to me was, "I hear you." Whether that's just bullshit, or whether he's actually the owner is telling the truth, and come 6 months down the line when Vive fully opens and we've got Live Space 2.0 on our hands, we don't know. But sooner or later, somebody's going, like Roger said, somebody's going to hit that magic point, and I think it's going to be it's going to cause a renaissance.
Right. It's a matter of time. People don't understand the space or how it came about. So how could you understand anything about the space if you don't know where it came from?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with all that. I think that's. I mean, that's kind of what I was saying about the new beam, right? Is that it just kind of they came in, they pivoted, from the VoIP space into the streaming space without really understanding the streaming space, and they now have a pay to play model that I highly doubt will score them any.
It's already
points.
I don't remember who I was talking to, but I was talking to a bunch of people on Sunday. We went and looked on the site. They had 12 streams up. 11 of them were repeats, including their talk with the CEO. Only one streamer, just one out of 12, was doing an actual live stream.
One wonders if that stream was started back when you could get in for free.
Yeah.
And it never ended.
I think I said everything that I'm going to say, and it's becoming close to midnight. So, but I believe that part of the reason why the internet was created was because you can have genuine conversations like the one we had tonight that you can't have within your immediate facility, within my immediate surroundings. So from everything that people are saying, I can understand. I know that this has been a very good faith conversation. I hope everybody has a good night, and thank you for inviting me to your stream.
Oh, no, thank you for showing up. And with that,
Yes,
I do think we've pretty much hit everything we can on this. The only thing now is to just wait and see what the next great thing on the horizon is. Meanwhile, we'll all be stuck here, in our various spots, waiting for it. Any other final words, guys?
Just Live Space was an event. It was a good thing. It's something I'll always look back to fondly. And the community was awesome, and the idea was awesome, and I hope someone with some deep pockets takes a long, hard look at what they were trying to do and tries to emulate it.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Everybody?
Good night.
Coming up, thanks. And with that.